Welcome to the Self Reflections podcast, where real reflections are shared by real people. Today's guest has a story that's raw, empowering, and beautifully transformative. Amanda Reece, founder of Amandafesting, shares how a diagnosis of cervical cancer and a hysterectomy that revealed stage 4 endometriosis became the turning point that led her to reclaim her body, reframe her upbringing, and rebuild a life rooted in self-care and sovereignty. From chronic pain to chronic joy, this episode is for anyone who did not get their needs met growing up and learning how to live for themselves. Amanda, thank you for joining me all the way from Canada.
So I feel like I was just talking about in general about the pandemic, where I was with my weight, thinking about like when
You
I'd
said
stopped
that you
smoking.
had stopped smoking.
I'd
Yeah.
stopped smoking and I had made that choice to stop smoking. And it was so interesting when I made this choice to stop smoking, because I was met with celebration from some family members and I was met with hostility and resentment and judgment from other family members. And I really had to take a step back and I was like, what is happening here? Like, why are people not excited that I'm making a better choice for myself, that I was able to do it? And I think what was so profound for me is because I watched people my entire life say they were going to do something and then never actually end up doing it. So it became this big hamster wheel, if you will, of watching people get onto this cycle of disease and say they were going to stop something or do something and then never do it. So growing up, I heard that from, a young age, from when I was 10, like onwards. Even with my brother, right? Like my parents would bring him back into the home time and time again. I would beg them not to do those things and they would bring him back. They taught me from an early age that my needs were not important and that I had to put his needs above my own. And that's what I needed to do for them and him and all of those things. So I was taught from a very young age that my needs were just small and that they were minimalized. And so I was taught those things. And so they would say, they would make comments over the years and they're still, from what I understand, doing it to this day, making comments like, we're done this time. This is it. We're no longer doing these things, and bringing him back into the home and doing this stuff. And so I would grow up with people never following through with those things. I would grow up with people saying that they would stop smoking or quit smoking. And in a couple weeks or a couple days or a couple months, they'd be smoking again. I'm stopping drinking. I'm no longer drinking. They'd be drinking heavily at the next family function. So I never actually got to see somebody say they were going to do something in my family and actually see it through. Like, that's just not something that I ever saw. So when I made the choice to stop smoking, I was pretty damn sure. I was like, I am done with it. I am not going to repeat the cycle. And if I say I'm going to be done with something, I'm done with it. So I made that decision to stop smoking, or I think it was 6 years ago now. And I haven't looked back. I just decided I was done with it. Like, that's it. That's done. It's finished.
And Amanda, you've touched on a few points there that I want to clarify for our community before we sink our teeth into your ongoing journey.
Yeah.
You talked about what we in the realm of therapy call parentification. It's when a child is placed in a caregiving role, whether that's to care for parents or caregivers or even siblings. And what we then notice as a child gets that type of treatment within their home, it's a form of developmental trauma where it disrupts natural attachment hierarchy, meaning that just like yourself and many of my clients, even me, even majority of us growing up, the child is no longer emotionally held and guided in the way that is required for adequate attachment development and a secure sense of self that then builds and is able to connect with this understanding that I have needs and I have a right to ask for them and I have a right to have them fulfilled. So when actually this reversal of roles occurs within the home environment, children naturally feel like getting their needs met it's burdensome, and that naturally can then manifest in just significantly chronic self-neglect, difficulty receiving support, and from what you've mentioned there, Amanda, being stuck in these cycles of just pleasing for the sake of, well, I have no other choice, because there's no attunement or even awareness that you actually have a right to have your needs met above anybody else, you know? And it's such an interesting thing that you've identified, where it then develops these codependent or enmeshed relationships in our family unit. And then that can easily bleed into our friendships, our relationships, because if our system is connected to that type of relationship, we then look for it in other type of relationships, whether they are platonic or romantic.
Everywhere. And like sometimes, like I have a lot of friends in the field too, and we'll sometimes make light or joke, and we'll send things like, like with my hyper independence or memes on that and things like that, and like, but it's like, it's so true. And it's so hard to ask for help and do these things because we're just so used to doing it on our own, figuring it out. Oh, I've got this. Like even like taking like all these bags up the stairs, like I can't even ask for help for doing something like that. So when this transformed into my journey with cancer, I actually didn't tell anybody for months.
You're kidding.
No, I didn't. And like, I was in therapy at the time and I was talking about it then. So I did, like, I had my family doctor and I was talking to my therapist about it. But I also had, because of my family and the way that things were, we had all experienced significant loss and trauma with family members who had passed away from cancer. And that's like just scratching like the surface of some of the things that had happened. And so I knew from a young age, like I was so good at predicting people's patterns. I was so good at predicting how people would react that I knew to a T, like in every bit of my intuition and gut, exactly how people would react to my cancer news. And I just processed that on repeat. I was renumerating on like constantly about how this was going to unfold, how it was going to go. And when I eventually did, I came to a point in my cancer journey where I needed to tell people, because my doctor was like, you cannot do this on your own as much as you think that you can. You cannot. You need to at least choose a couple of people to tell that's going to support you in this. Emotionally, getting you to the hospital, getting you to like your surgery, these things, just tell a couple. And I did that. And then when that surgery confirmed that my cancer had spread, I was going to need even more support, which was just like in my every being. I was like, oh my gosh, like I just don't want to ask for this kind of help from people. Like I just don't know how to do that, because I'm like, I'm the one that goes and does the helping and supports in the crisis and supports in all of these things. Like I don't know how to accept that myself. Like it was like, that was probably harder than the cancer, like accepting that help from people. So it was,
and what you say there, and what you say there, Amanda, it actually speaks to something I see time and time again in clients and in my own journey too. When you grow up constantly giving away your needs at the expense of somebody else's or scanning the room for others' needs, you actually stop knowing how to feel your own and to ask for for help. And often as adults, asking for help and getting people involved in your life actually feels unsafe, because just like you've reported there, it's as if you already knew that by you existing and requesting support is going to have a consequence, a negative consequence. So naturally that then builds a sense of fear and further disconnect. And I love that you've identified and were quite open to share how how connected we then become with overdependence, of just doing everything our own, not relying on anybody else. And it's so common. And you don't have to have the exact same upbringing as you did, Amanda, but it's more so this this over reliance on your own capability without feeling safe in being able to ask people, in fear of them saying no, or them having a meltdown, or them using it against you, or them calling you selfish. Whatever the outcome may actually be, our nervous system is wired that we are not willing to actually put ourselves in that in the firing line, in fear that we're going to get hurt. We'd rather have the pain of doing it ourselves than actually have the pain of the disappointment or rejection or conflict, and that will lead to us doing it ourselves anyway.
That's right. It's just like, that's like our own hamster wheel that we create for ourselves. It's like, this is what's going to happen, and I'm just going to do this because this is like easier, and this is what's going to regulate me doing this. So to like actually ask for help was like, that was a lot. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And even as I asked for help, and the patterns were very transparent and showed from a lot of the members of my family, the key people that I had chosen originally to share my news with, they were like, you knew this from the beginning. Like, you knew exactly how everybody would react, how everybody, like, they just watched it unfold because I explained it all to them, what was going to happen. And they were like, how do you know how this is going to happen? And I'm like, call it intuition, or just call it years of watching these people acting and responding in this way. I knew exactly what it was that they would do, how it was that they would react, and what job I could give them to just, like, make it easy and be firm in my boundaries and doing these things. I was like, I knew I had a plan for everything. By the time I was ready to share, I knew exactly what to do. But it was a lot. It was scary.
I bet it would. And thank you so much for sharing the details of how that all came about, and the journey that it actually took to even admit to yourself that I do have to have some people in my corner to fight this. And coming from someone who did not trust that people are going to be there for you in the way that you need, and then having to face that while you're also facing cancer, I can appreciate that it's sometimes, the battles we pick are sometimes surprising for others, where you would rather just deal with cancer on your own than have to actually ask for support. So it really highlights how interconnected you were with doing everything on your own, and being assuming that people are just going to disappoint you and not show up. So in saying that, Amanda, take us through what it was like to get your diagnosis and what happened then.
So getting my diagnosis, it was really interesting. And I laugh at it, but I shouldn't, because like I can think about it now. And I've done a lot of therapy, a lot of work to kind of work through even how traumatic it was, like learning that I had cancer. But I did so much work during those few months where I didn't tell anybody, on myself, on reframing my cancer, and what I made it all about was like key in how I just managed to get through everything. And so I'll take you now back to like how my life was like, and I know I touched a little bit about it through the pandemic. So back then, and during the pandemic, I kind of loved it. I was like, I got to sit and do nothing. Back then I couldn't even stand for more than 5 minutes at a time. I was well over 300 pounds back then. Food was my only source of comfort that I could do. Over the years, I had gone to a doctor, and My periods were out of control always. They were awful, awful. I actually hadn't even had sex. Like, I didn't have intercourse for just about 10 years or just over 10 years. Like, I had stopped doing kind of everything. Sex for me
Because
used to
of the
be
pain or
because
other
of pain.
things?
I had pain
Oh,
during intercourse. And so I
yeah.
stopped having sex for years. It was over a decade. And during that time, I would talk to my doctor and I would say, is there any way that I could just have a hysterectomy? Because I'm not having sex. I don't want children. And I didn't want children because I didn't want to repeat any, all these cycles and the hamster wheel, all these things that were going on with my family. And numerous other reasons too. But I was like, I'm not even having sex. Like, can we just get this uterus out of me? And my doctor would look at me and say, you are too young. You are going to change your mind. You're going to want to have kids. No doctor will give you a hysterectomy. And that was the messaging I had. And then the other messaging that I had was, you just need to lose weight. You're going to lose weight and you're going to be fine. That's all you need to do is just lose some weight. Can we get you into this clinic? Can you try Weight Watchers? Have you tried this? Like, even to do like there's that gastric bypass thing. Like, she's like, you would still need to lose 100 pounds before we could even get you to do that surgery. So it was like constantly the messaging even from my doctors back then was lose weight and you're going to change your mind. You're going to want kids. And I was like, no, I'm not going to change my mind. I don't want children and I can't even walk. Like, I can't even lose weight. So like back then I accepted defeat and I accepted living in a life of pain. And I still even back then had a very cheerful demeanor. Like, even now, people find out about this and they find out about my journey. And they were like, I had no idea that you were in so much pain because you were always so elated and happy go lucky. And I did a good job of wearing a mask. And that was something that I learned from younger in childhood to put on a mask because when I was happy and when I was good, and that's when I would get praise. That's when I would be accepted. That's when I would get my hurrah, like, you're doing a great job because you're in that space. So I just learned how to be bubbly and do that. It was part of my people pleasing journey, right? Because I never said no. I just did all these things. And so, like, I still get goosies kind of like talking about it. And now even too, because this is the first time that I'm actually talking about how to weave in all the stuff with the mesh sibling dynamics and all the stuff that brought me here to this. So that's where I kind of was during the pandemic. And I used to just sit around. I used to eat food, spend time on the couch, watching movies, seeing all these action movies and adventures and wondering how people even did that stuff. Like, how do you even walk? Like, I can't even do that. And yet that's all my source of entertainment was. And I remember there was this vision that I used to have because a couple people in my family would like there was a hot air balloon ride, and I was like, my one cousin sold that to like the ticket or something like that to my now an estranged sibling, and like I was so jealous, like I was so full of like jealousy because I would have loved to go into a hot air balloon, but I never ever would have been able to stand for the whole duration. Like, there's no way with that lower back pain that I used to have that could happen. So when I would keep asking for the hysterectomy, keep getting told no, all the things, and I just had to accept my life. This was my life. I couldn't do anything about it. So I would drink very heavily, and back then I was self-medicating with any kind of pain med that I could. I used to go through a bottle of like that Costco size extra strength Tylenol, like I'd say probably every 2 months. Like, I was just eating like
Wow.
4 or 5 pieces or more a day, like just go. So, and that's how I would
But it
just live.
highlights, Amanda, it really, really highlights the significant distress, discomfort,
Mhm.
and just complete, want to just numb and get some form of a relief from what you're experiencing. And when, it's not unusual for women, especially with chronic health conditions, to be just rejected, or even that their conditions are minimized by the medical industry, that they're overreacting, or that, oh, it's just a period, or it's just weight, or
Right.
it's really, really common that women are minimized for their chronic health conditions, and you then have to rely on other sources to deal with the pain, like alcohol, like food, like medication. So it makes beautiful sense why you reached for literally anything and everything to get through the significant discomfort that you're describing you were experiencing.
It was horrible. It, like, I think back to it and I'm like, I found an almost empty bottle of Tylenol, like I think it was a couple months ago, and I made a post about it on social media. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't had Advil now in it's been years, like a couple of years. Like I'm like, I haven't even touched this stuff. So, and that's like the beautiful part that I'll share with everybody about this journey and how it moved forward. So I was asking for this hysterectomy. It wouldn't happen. And then um a situation happened with a family member, and my family doctor, as a precautionary, wanted me to go off birth control. So when I went off birth
Okay.
control, my periods got even worse. Like, even like I had no quality of life. I tracked on my calendar that I was bleed. I think I had bled from, I'd have to look at the exact dates, but it was September to December every single day, no relief, no stop. And like full out, like you're in like the thick of your cycle. And we as women know how, like, that was, it was just a nightmare when I look back to like what it was, even the
Yeah.
cost of like upkeeping that, and just my health, like, and it was horrible. And it was funny because I used to joke at that time that it took a pandemic for me to want to start to date again. And I did try to date, and I did actually try to have intercourse and do those things, and I still learned that it hurt a lot. So I was not excited about those things. But I was dating, trying to do that stuff. And then I was also trying to advocate more for myself with my health, because at that point I had stopped smoking. I didn't pick up a cigarette once over that pandemic. Like, it was gone out of my life. I broke that cycle. It was done. Um, and then I go to my doctor's, and she sends me in for ultrasounds, and she tells me I have cysts and fibroids and things like that. And I was like, okay, well, just get the uterus out of me. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I'm still like, here I am years later, still asking for a hysterectomy. And she's still like, no, you're still too young. So I go to a gynecologist because I need some form of birth control if I am going to try to have sexual relations with any of my new like dating connections. And this gynecologist that I go to, I ask him for hysterectomy too, and he says no. Again, same messaging. You're going to change your mind. You're going to want to have kids. And he recommends an IUD. He inserted this IUD, and it was probably the most painful physical experience I've ever felt. And he literally told me, and there's a nurse in the room, and I was like sobbing. I was in tears, holding her hand, like squeezing so tight. I feel so bad for that nurse's hand. And he's telling me that I'm overreacting and that it's not that bad. As I'm
You're
laying down,
kidding.
having it inserted, he's like, I don't know why you're like being so dramatic. You're getting very loud, and it's not that bad. So I'm just like,
Wouldn't that be alarm bells that if a patient is having this reaction, then something should actually be wrong here
wrong?
and further
Yeah,
investigation needs
maybe
to
check it out.
occur?
Maybe check it out. And
Oh
maybe
my
like
God.
I don't know, like, is stop and be more trauma informed and do all these things too,
Yes.
Mr. Like, I actually, in some of my TikToks and social media now, I refer to him as Dr. Pooh, because that's what his name actually rhymes with. And I'm just like, don't go to him if you're in Burlington. Do not go to anyone that rhymes with Dr. Pooh. Just don't do it. And so I have fun jokes about that now. But so him and I, like, I was in a fight with Dr. Pooh. Him and I were not great friends by the end of this. Um, and when I got home, I was like, I felt like I could feel the IUD in me. And I was like, I just did this visualization over and over. And I'm like, what if I just like take it out myself? Like, if everything just comes out, like, I'll just go to the hospital and then they'll just have to take it out because I've already started it. Like, just those were the kind of like bonker kind of things that I would think about. I'm like, how do I get this out? How do I get it out? I don't want it in me anymore. And then 2 weeks later, my doctor calls, my family doctor, and she's like, you need to go back to the gynecologist. You need to go back to Dr. Pooh because your pap smear results have come back and they were delayed because of COVID and all the backlog with test results and all these things. And she says that there is something going on like with your results and they're abnormal. So you need to go back and get a biopsy done of your cervix. So I go back very reluctantly to Dr. Pooh. I didn't want to, but she was like, there's no way we'll get you into a gynecologist. The wait times would take you months. So we need to just get this over with and go in. And I was like, okay, fine. So I go back in. Again, I'm on the table and my legs are open getting this biopsy done, and he's spraying the solution and he's looking up at my cervix with a microscope. And as my legs are open on the table and he's looking and doing this examination, he just blurts out, that looks like cancer. And that's how I found out that I most likely had cancer, was like on the table, legs open. And I'm like, oh, doctors, please find better trauma-informed ways to tell your patients that they might have cancer. That's not the time or place when you're staring into their vagina. Just don't do that. I was angry with him as soon as I got up off the table because of that experience, and I just wanted out of there. And then I start Googling and joining the groups, and I'm like, what does this mean? Like, if I have cancer, and everybody was saying that the treatment was a hysterectomy. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to get my hysterectomy. I'm like, I'm going to get it. Like, I'm going to get it.
The fact that you actually, that your medical practitioners didn't, to some level, try and work with you, and you actually had to get cancer for them to actually take this issue seriously is just next level.
It's
and
a lot.
You know what, Amanda, what infuriates me is your story around the way that you've been treated in the medical industry is not unique, especially around women and their chronic health conditions.
Mm-hmm.
They're minimized. They're told that they're being dramatic, like in your case, that, that they should just get over it, or that there's, and even just further tests are sometimes refused. And look, I'm part of the medical industry. I'm a psychologist, and I very much believe that the medical industry in some cases is absolutely phenomenal, and we do very much need it. And like in any industry, there are going to be people that are very ill-informed and work with, like you've used the term, like in that trauma informed care, which is pivotal when we are trying to deal with such sensitive topics and vulnerable individuals.
And it's like, thank you for that. It's like, we don't realize that all these things are so common until we start talking to each other and we find our community, because otherwise we're just gaslit and we start to believe
completely
that it's all in our head, and it makes us even like feel smaller. Like, I'm not going to use my voice. I'm not going to speak up. Like, I think about all of those years, people are like, well, why didn't you push harder? Why didn't you advocate? And it's like, I was like terrified because communicating from my needs was never something that I was allowed to do as a child. And why am I putting up a big fight about this? They already said no. I need to do what I'm told, and I need to people please and stop causing such a fuss for other people, because I shouldn't disrupt their days. I need to make it nice and pleasant for them.
You have named something so pivotal. Welcome to Self-Reflections, real people, real reflections. Whatever you're carrying, you don't have to do it alone. We're not just your average service. A space to come home to yourself one session at a time. A sanctuary where you feel seen, heard, and held. We meet you where you are, online or in person, providing support across the lifespan from little ones to adults, nurturing your mind, body, and relationships. Real people, real reflections. Book now at selfreflections.com. It's that if we've grown up with an understanding of the world and our place in it, we are then more likely to be vulnerable to perpetuate those cycles in our adult life.
That's right.
We don't speak up, we don't advocate for ourselves, that we kind of roll over and take it because that's what we've been taught our whole life. And naturally that makes individuals so vulnerable, and they don't know any different when it comes to going to people in a role that might be more educated than them or more specialist than them. Of course, you're going to fall into the trap of just being guided in a way where you might not actually know any different, and you're stuck in that. And so many individuals don't even know. And like you mentioned, they don't even know that they have the right to seek further clarification, to get certain tests done. Because it's this repetition of the behaviors that they were exposed to growing up, and now it's repeating in their adult life.
That's right. And like it just, the hamster wheel, like that image just continuously starts to perpetuate, and it just keeps going around and around. And from other people now that weren't even in your life doing that, it just, you can't get off this loop. So it's like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? So here I am stuck on this, and now I'm like at this crossroads where I'm like, I might actually get a hysterectomy because I've been asking for that for years, but I have a cervical cancer too. Like I have cancer. And so this gynecologist, he was like, so you aren't going to get a hysterectomy unless the cancer has spread. So then I started, this is where it starts to get a little even more bonkers in my journey. I start manifesting for cancer to spread even more, but just enough so I can get this hysterectomy and get it out of me. I'm like, just spread just enough to just give me that. That's all I want, is just enough. And so I would be in a lot of meditations with myself. I would just stay in that. I was like, just enough, just enough, just enough. That's it. That's all. That's all. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, you have cancer. Oh my gosh, you have cancer. Oh my gosh, you're going to die. Stop. This is all you need. You just need your hysterectomy. So I was trying to get like my mindset right about this. And so I had to go for a surgery with this gynecologist. And again, I couldn't transfer out because it would have taken months to get somebody new. So I had to trust this person who has already let me down twice to do another surgery. And he tells me before surgery that he's going to put a band in my cervix. So when he does this biopsy and this cone procedure, and he tells me he's going to put this band in my cervix. So don't worry, I can still have children at the end of this. And I was like, how many times have I told you I don't want children? I said very clearly to him, I'm like, if I find out that you have put this band in my cervix after this surgery, you're going to have a conversation with a lawyer. And I'm like, I am done with this. So here I am threatening, I guess, my doctor, but that's how vocal I had to get to say, start listening to me. Like, how much do I have to like shout it? And I'm like trying to do these things, and I'm not as calm as I am now and being able to tell these things, but I was like crying and upset in these waiting rooms. And I'm like, just listen. Like, why aren't you listening to me that this is not what I want? So he does this surgery, and I'll never forget it. He called me, and I was in this room actually. It didn't look like this before. It's changed a little bit, but I was in a staff meeting, and I get a call. And again, nobody knows that I'm going through this journey. I get a call, and it's him, and I just turn my camera off, mute myself, go out to my living room, take this call from Dr. Pooh. And he tells me that my endocarcinoma has spread, and that I'm going to get my wish, and I'm going to get my hysterectomy. Congratulations, you have cancer. You're going to get your hysterectomy. He was that sarcastic and whatever else. I was like, perfect, thanks. And I hung up the phone. I didn't even ask any other clarifying questions because I was done with him. I'm done with you. He said he was going to transfer me to oncology. And I went back to my meeting as if nothing had happened. I was like, I'm good. I'm just going to carry on. And then that's when it was like, now you're going to have this hysterectomy. And I had to start sharing the news with people and doing these things because I was like, this is real now. Like, this is actually happening. But I also was excited about getting my uterus evicted because this is what I wanted. But it was also with this heaviness of like, oh my gosh, I have cancer. Like, what's happening with my body and my mind? So I framed it with my family members that I was very excited about this. And I was excited because intuitively, like I knew I needed that hysterectomy and I'd asked for it for years, but I never got it and I was going to get it. And I was 36 when I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was 37 by the time I was able to have the hysterectomy. So
Wow, that spread
hysterectomy,
quick.
it was not quick. Everything was so delayed because it was right out of COVID. So living with cancer in
No,
my
I
body.
meant it spread quick if it was
Oh,
just over that
yes.
year.
Yeah.
But no, I can appreciate that
Yeah.
for all the tests and
Yeah.
advocating for
It was quick.
yourself and
It was quick,
getting to
but yeah.
that across the line. Yeah, that would have
Mhm.
been dreadful and
Mhm.
one day would have felt like years.
Yeah, it did. It did. It did. Like at one point, I got shingles because I was so stressed out from it, and like I knew that that's when I really needed to get better with regulating myself and calming down because I was like, this is living in your body. Do not make it worse. Do not make
Yeah.
this worse. So that's when I was doing more Reiki and I was trying to just be more mindful and calm and positive. And guys, I'm getting a hysterectomy and all these things. Like, I'm so excited. But like, I wasn't sharing a lot with people either. It was on a very need to know basis. That's it. I was in control of all of it. I needed to feel in control of at least that
Mhm.
narrative of who knew, why, any of that stuff. And then there's stigma around cervical cancer as well too, right? With because it's still unclear of how my cervical cancer came about because I was 10 years abstinence, like all of these things. So it's like, how did this even happen for cervical cancer? But I don't know if I'll ever know, and all of these things, but there's so much stigma attached to it, like with everything. So it was heavy, a lot of things to work through at that time and things that I know I'll still be working through as the years go by.
Yeah.
And then,
On
I
that,
get, yeah,
Amanda, it's not uncommon for um so many different things impact how our body reacts to things. The way the things we put on our body, in our body, the high levels of cortisol, stress.
all of it.
What we don't realize is all of that on top of the trauma you've endured when you were
Mhm.
younger. All of that is going to manifest
All of
and
it.
create illness of any
All of it.
kind, whether it's physical illness or mental illness. It's actually going to have a ripple effect. And
That's right.
sometimes it's not just one thing or one instance or episode of a thing.
No.
Sometimes it's years and years and years of it manifesting into then a sickness where you no longer can escape from what you need to do to be able to create some form of balance within your
That's right.
nervous system and your body. And I have had other guests sharing their experience with cancer, and it is that kind of hit of something actually needs to change.
Change.
I can't escape from this anymore.
No.
And when people do get the significant diagnosis of cancer, it's
Mhm.
that there was something. Yeah, some people do have
Mhm.
something specific that had resulted in that,
Yeah.
whereas others, it's this compounding, you know, this compounding result of what we've been exposed to and how we continue to cope
Mhm.
with what we've had to endure over the years.
Yeah. Mm. It's you're so bang on with that because we have had to do all of these things for so long. So it's
Yeah.
like, and then all of this disease just starts manifesting in ourselves, right? So then we can start to make other choices of how to get that out and clear that for
Yes.
ourselves. So that way our bodies, are peaceful. And like
Yeah.
that is like the part of the journey that I've been living in the last couple of years of just anything that is not bringing peace in my life. It's just like, it's so easy to say goodbye to that now because I know what that bruise in my body. And I'm like, no, thank you. I do not want that anymore. I am done with that. I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm good for that. No. Yeah. So
Amanda, tell us a little bit about what happened after you did receive the
yeah,
hysterectomy. Finally, after
I
so
know.
many years
Finally.
of
So
fighting for
finally
it.
I fight for this hysterectomy and I get it. Um, and the surgery took so long because they discovered stage 4 endometriosis in my body. And so for anyone that knows what endometriosis is, it's uterus like tissue that grows outside of your body. It's extremely, extremely painful for women. It's graded stage 1 to 4 being the most serious. And I had stage 4. So my uterus was literally attached to my rectum. It was like, and I still, when I woke up, and there was things that happened even before my surgery. And so there was things that happened even before my surgery that like I had a new oncologist assigned to my surgery the morning of my hysterectomy. And they made this whole new plan with me that something, that they would take. I wanted to get rid of my ovaries, and they told me all the good things that my ovaries can do, and they kind of underdressed, just got me to keep my ovaries last minute. And so the plan was they were going to test my lymph nodes in surgery, and if my lymph nodes came back clear, then they would leave my ovaries. But if they came back, with any cancer signs, then they would take my ovaries. So when I woke up, the first thing I heard before endometriosis was that my ovaries were gone. And I learned actually that it wasn't the cancer had not spread to my lymph nodes, that actually one of my ovaries was plastered to my uterus wall because it was completely unrecognizable from the endometriosis. So they had to take one of those ovaries because they couldn't even tell what it was. Like, it was just gone. And I had no idea what was kind of going. I had never even really heard, I think I'd heard of endometriosis once before. And my doctors had even thought it could have been endometriosis at one point, but they were like, no, there's no way. There's no way it's endometriosis. And then they learned
And
it's
you know
stage
what?
4.
Yeah, the fact that you had to endure something like this for you to get an actual diagnosis of everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Do you know, I actually did a little bit of research in prep for our episode, more so the latest research, but I do have many women as clients who do suffer with endometriosis, and it actually affects 1 in 9 females. It is incredible, and it remains still undiagnosed and so misunderstood, and like your experience, Amanda, it takes at least 7 to 10 years for someone to actually receive a proper diagnosis. Because when you actually look at the experience for majority of women, it's the disbelief. It's, oh no, it must be something else. And and I do appreciate it's really hard to diagnose unless you go and do an invasive surgery or a check. It's not, you're not going to be able to confirm what type of stage it is, or even if it is endometriosis. And I think without having to undergo surgery on a regular basis, it is also such a horrific experience for women to one experience, but also treat for themselves, because the body keeps developing this growth outside of the uterus that can affect so many of the other organs in and around that area.
Everything. And it can be found all throughout your whole body. Like, it's not just limited to like one spot, and it's so incredibly painful. And I still have moments of my life where I think back now of what, I was like, that was endometriosis. I was like, that was endometriosis. I'm like, I can't believe this. And I still when I remember when I came home from this surgery, I had no idea still what it meant, this diagnosis, no idea. And um, I was just like, they told me after that to heal from my hysterectomy, I should go on walks. And I just laughed at them. I was like, I don't walk. Like, I can't walk. I can't even walk for more than 5 minutes at a time. Like, you don't get it. Like, my lower back is so sore. I can't do that. So I was like, whatever, just let me out of here. I'm just going to go home to my couch and just live my life in peace. And so I came back home, had a lot of support from family. Like, that's one thing about enmeshed family dynamics. We all know how to rally around one another in a crisis. So I did have a lot of support for that time. And I had a pretty tricky recovery because my wound ended up opening up. So that set me back a little, like quite extensively in my healing. And I remember one day I was in this room, and I had my sit stand desk, and I stood up just to like stretch a little bit. It was like a few weeks after surgery, and I was like, just my shoulders and everything were sore, so I'm like, let's just stand up. And I was still shaky in a week, but I would try to do these things and stand up. And I was still working remotely and doing some things, and I was like, I don't know how long had passed, and I was like, holy shit, like how long have I actually been standing for? And I just
Wow.
had this moment. I didn't even know what had happened. And I sat down, and I was scanning my body with my mind. I was like, where's the pain? Like, where is that pain? And I stood up again, and I was like, there's no way. And I set a timer for myself because I just didn't believe it. And I'm like, can I stand? And I was like, so I set my timer for 5 minutes, no pain. I sat down. I set it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and my legs were sore. Like, I was sore there, and I was so mindful of where pain was in my body at that point. And I was like, hey, I'm sore here. Feet are getting a little sore because I'm not used to standing. And at that point, I was over 300 pounds too. Like, that's just not something I did unless I had to, like, get somewhere quickly and then sit down, right? And I was standing, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I can stand. And I didn't even want to tell anybody again because I was just like, what's happening here? Like, I was on some good painkillers too for all the stuff and helping, but I didn't understand what's happening. And so I started to go for walks around. I have this water fountain outside my property. So I would go for a loop around the water fountain and come back and then sit down in my home. And then I would do that 3 times a day. I had never done anything like that before. And then one day I was like, I'm going to walk around the block. Like, I'm going to do this. And I walked around my block of my neighborhood. Like, it was like the best magical, like goosey, elated feeling ever. I'm like, I'm actually doing this. Like, I'm walking around my block. I had lived in this building at that time for like 7 years, and I had never walked around my block ever. And so then I just started adding on little bits of my neighborhood, and I found this park literally behind my building that I had no idea was ever there. And I walked down the path there and just kept expanding this. um, I went on a trip with friends, and they are strong, healthy people. And these were new friendships that I had also had as part of my journey too. And they're just the most incredible humans. And they slowed things down, and we went on a hike. It was my first hike ever, and it was like the first time I'd ever did 5,000 steps. Like, I was the person before that used to joke that if I ever got a Fitbit, it would be to see how little steps I could do in a day, not to do like actual steps. Like, I would use that self-deprecating humor back then as a mask for all the pain and the
Yeah.
tearfulness, but that's what I would do. And here I was doing 5,000 steps. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And then that year, so it was 2022 then. And so Christmas and New Year's of that year, I booked a trip with my friend, and we booked a trip to Vancouver Island. And I spent New Year's and Chris, like that going into 2023, hiking magical rainforest out in Vancouver Island. Like, it was like I have never, like, if I close my eyes, I can still like smell that earth in. Like, I just seen that just everything. I felt like, you ever watch Twilight? You know, when Bella turns vampire, like just taking in every bit of sensory happening in that forest, I was like, this is so breathtaking. Like, this actually exists. Like, I'm not in a movie, I'm living my life. So then from there, it was like, I need to see more. There is so much more of this world to see, because before this, it used to be an all-inclusive resort so I could smoke and drink and sit and do nothing. And that was my idea of an amazing vacation. And now it's like, can I go and walk 16,000 steps in Disney Paris? Because that is incredible. Or maybe I'm just going to book an entire month and go stay in Lisbon in Portugal, because yeah, I can do that. But that's my life now. And so even with this, and like, this is like my company, I remember, like, even in the pandemic, I started Amandafesting. That's what my friends have always called it in my life, is Amandafesting. And in the pandemic, I remember telling my colleague, because I loved working remotely, I was like, I'm never coming back to in-person work. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to work remotely, and I'm going to go and travel. I had no idea back then how I was even going to travel, because I couldn't even walk and stand for more than 5 minutes. But somehow I just believed that I was going to go and travel. And it did. It happened. I didn't realize that it would happen and manifest through cancer and evicting my uterus and finding out what was behind all those years of pain. But it happened. And so then I started manifesting my remote work lifestyle. And right now I've just had a full year of I've been more than 2 years now remote, but now I've been a full year as an independent contractor. Amandafesting is thriving. That's the name of my company. Back in 2023, I called my cousin from Greece and I said, can you just check to see if amandafesting.com is available? And she's like, it is. I said, get it and manifest every variation there is of it. I'm like, I want it. It's mine. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it yet. But I want it. And so she did. She bought the domain so I could have it. I built my website last year. And it's just growing and booming like since then. And I've just keep traveling, keep exploring. And I've had so many fumbles with my health over the last few years too, because it was like a toddler. I was a toddler learning how to walk. I ended up getting plantar fasciitis, knee injuries, all these things. So I was in physiotherapy and I was going to the gym, and I just kept finding ways to get my body healthy. And I was like, that's fine. This is a setback. I'm going to get stronger again, and I'm going to be able to walk and do these things. But I did it. And all the there's been so significant changes in my life with family members. I've worked with a therapist extensively to walk away from my family of origin and help me move through the enmeshed family dynamics and what that meant for my life, and putting myself first and not, selfish and self first are not the same thing at all. And that's something that I coach women about in my self-esteem workshops now. And I've just done so much work on myself, and I still have an abundance of work to do on myself and in my healing journey, but I just keep accessing new levels of it. And I love it. And I'm just in this vibration, and I'm just protecting my peace. I'm protecting my peace in my mind, in my body. And that's like my biggest priority, is doing that these days. So I just need more of it. Yeah.
And I think, to add to what you've described there for our community, when we have chronic pain, it completely debilitates our capacity to live a full life. We are restricted, are in constant agony. People really minimize that and just see it as lazy, but don't actually realize, because it's something that you're not going to be able to express to somebody else, the depth of the impact. So I do appreciate that when there is chronic pain, it can really, really take away a life from anybody. And from what you've described there, Amanda, it's through the surgery and through being able to get the hysterectomy and, get rid of the cancer and get rid of the endometriosis. And we'll talk about what it's like navigating that now. But it created an opportunity for a pain free body.
Yeah.
Not to say that your body wasn't traumatized, because it obviously was, not just from, like you said, not being able to walk for so many years. You had to retrain it, and it still had hiccups and it still had pains, but there was a window of opportunity where you could actually then feel what it is to be pain-free, in the way that you were hindered for so many years prior to that. And I love that in that moment you kept testing yourself.
Yeah.
You also kept engaging with services to help overcome the barriers that this newfound, I guess, section of your life still would have created for you. Like you said, there was the knee pain or the feet pain, or like things that you wouldn't have even thought were problems, but now you have to overcome. So the fact that you also then stopped being this hyper independent person, you actually, from what it sounds like, just got your army together. You know, you had your clinicians, you had your people, you were able to step into a community in a way to be able to move through those barriers that are naturally still going to be there, right? I want to normalize for our community that even though one big barrier, and in this instance significant pain, gets thrown out the window and all of a sudden it's not part of your everyday, there are still going to be other barriers that you're going to also get faced with, and that's okay. You don't have to do the battle all on your own. You can look at what those barriers are. If you don't know how to overcome them, link yourself with people that are actually either been through the situation themselves or are skilled enough to be able to give you the skills to be able to overcome those barriers. And tiny step by step, you're then going to notice that you're going to create this openness of life for yourself. You know, for you previously it was your house, or even just that couch, you know, where it was very much where you lived and where you existed. And then all of a sudden the world got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and that in itself creates such a beautiful connection for any one of us who are struggling, who are limiting ourselves, that there is the opportunity to. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Do you need people to go on that journey with you? Yes. Can you take tiny steps, and is it going to get better and easier as time progresses? Yes. Are there still going to be barriers? Absolutely. But if nothing else, please, to our community, if you are restricted to just a really, really small space that you live in, please know that there's more, and there are people to be able to help you navigate out of that when you are ready to do the work for yourself as well.
Yeah, it's a really big part, and listening to you talk, it's a huge part of, I have my whole aim and align framework now of how I show people how it is that I manifest and how it is that I do these things. I say something, I call it in, I bring it, and the L in align stands for liaise. Like, you absolutely cannot do these things by yourself. Like, we want to think that we can, but it's really important about who you're liaising with. Like, who are your friends? Who's your friendship systems? Like, who are your medical support systems? Who are the doctors that you can go to for support? Are you working on your mindset and your mental health and doing those things and working with a therapist? Are you working with a physiotherapist to help you with any body pains or chronic inflammation or those things with you? What are, like, even now, like, I'm working on my chiropractic health because I've learned, like, that I have, I was experiencing some lower back pain, and they thought I had ovarian cancer, and all these things were going on, and all this stuff started again. And I was like, no, it doesn't feel like cancer. Something's different. Something's wrong. And I was like, am I about to go through this all again? And those thoughts crept up. But turned out it was an issue with my spine. And I wouldn't have got to that if I hadn't kept advocating for myself, because I knew what to do now. And I knew to do those things. So it's like, who are you liaising with? Because these supports are out there and we can't figure it out wholly by ourselves. So it's really, really important who you connect with out there.
What's your health look like now, Amanda?
My gosh. So I was over 300 pounds 3 years ago, and I've released 70 pounds in 3 years just from being able to walk. But not just being able to walk, because one of the things too that I really wanted to work on was my relationship with food. And that was like big one to do. And I actually started listening to a couple podcasts, and I talked with therapists about it. And I started to map out something that worked for me, that helped me I was like, if I can have these boundaries with people in my life, because that's how it started with moving away from my enmeshed family dynamics, and that those family ties was having boundaries. And then, people don't like it when you set up boundaries, and then you start having even more rigid boundaries, and that kind of stuff just starts propelling you forward. And I was like, if I can have those boundaries and put those in place with people that are very difficult to do those things with, I can have healthy boundaries with my kitchen. I can have healthy boundaries of when I eat, how I eat, do those things, and I can apply those same techniques to what I do. And so I have. And it's just like, even just with all my experiences in traveling and being able to try different food all around the world and doing that, like, I've even shifted what things I eat. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's just been this incredible journey. So yeah, I'm feeling so good. Physiotherapy I graduated from after 2 years. They helped me right after that hysterectomy. They were there for me. Gosh, they were even teaching me how to poop. Like, they were like, you have a core. Like, they taught me I had a core. I had no idea that I had core muscles, and they were like, you have a core. You can do this. So they taught me my core muscles. They walked me through my plantar fasciitis. They helped me with my knee injuries. And like yesterday, I did the run to run endo. So I did this whole
Wow.
fundraising event to do Endometriosis Network of Canada, and I was able to participate, not as a runner, but as a walker. And I walked that race yesterday, and I did that with all the other walkers. And it was incredible just being in that community space of everybody else there that got it. And I wish I had known that community existed before. If I had had a name to what I was going through before, maybe it would have been so different. But now I can be a support for people in these groups. So I've joined as many endometriosis groups as I possibly can on Facebook. And whenever I'm doing my scrolling, I see these things pop up. And if somebody's asking for tips, or something that's happening for them, or they're just needing a space to cry or vent, I pop in and I comment, and I offer what I know, what I can, to support them where they're at in their journey. And just, offer a cyber hug here or there, or to reach out to me if they, want to chat more. Any of those things,
Mm-hmm.
because I know how alone that disease feels. So yeah, it's and I'm also I do the same thing in the cervical cancer groups, because I think it's important for people to know that you can move through this. I have a lot of tips on what it's like to have that radical hysterectomy, and what things worked for me that
Yeah.
I didn't even know I would need. Um, but that got me through to the other side of it. And even healing from that was a lot of work. I feel like just now, with my health and how I feel this year, I'm finally like, this is how my body feels. Like, I now have a new level of like, this is how it should feel. And it's just going to keep getting stronger and feeling better. Like, I go to the gym now. Like, I do these things. Like, it feels so weird. Like, my mind, it's taken a long time for my mind to get behind it all too, because sometimes I have to go and sit with that girl that sat on the couch all those years. So sometimes I go and sit with her and like just soothe her. I'm like, it's okay. We go for we go for a walk now. This is how we spend our day. We get 8,000 to 12,000 steps in. This is what we're doing now. And it just takes a little while to get up there and doing that stuff, but you get there. So it's I'm feeling really great. I'm feeling like this is amazing. Like, to just go for a walk. I really have a lot of gratitude for everything that I can do now, and I just keep finding more things to have gratitude for, and just being really proud of myself for everything I'm choosing for myself. And my inner kiddo too. She's been on fire the last the last couple of years, with speaking up and doing all the things that I wish I had been able to do as a kiddo, but
Yeah.
just couldn't do. So I'm doing all those things for her now too, and I'm finding space to sit with her. And there's still so much work to do, right? There's a lot of integration stuff that comes with it. So, but I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it, and it's nice that at least now I can go for a walk while I live in my mind of all this stuff that's been going on. So it's a good place to process, is to either hit the treadmill or go for a walk outside. Yeah.
Yeah. Amanda, you've actually highlighted how important it is to slowly start giving back to yourself. And I do know that our community, well, not just our community, I think majority of people out there really, really misunderstand what self-care actually is. It's more than just this surface level indulgence, you know, outside of bubble baths and spa days or rest days.
Right? The green
While
smoothie.
those can obviously be very supportive and important, but true self-care is often uncomfortable and it requires inner work, boundaries, and self-confrontation. And you've highlighted very clearly that that is what you had to radically do in all fronts of your life. It wasn't just the enmeshed relationships. It was your relationship with food. It was also the relationship you had with yourself. And it's so important for us to acknowledge that self-care has to have a deeper connection to healing the wounds that have occurred over years and years and years of our needs not being met. And I want to highlight that for trauma survivors, especially those raised in environments where their needs were dismissed or that they were conditioned to be caretakers in any way, self-care is actually a really radical act for them to start participating in. It's so hard for us to set boundaries alone, let alone when we've never been able to set boundaries previously. You know, learning how to say no without guilt, or even those or even saying no without guilt to people that we love or that people that love us. There is still this kind of aspect of ourselves that we need to work through and ensure that we're attuning to what we need and fulfilling our needs in a really safe way. I know that sometimes with our nervous system, we do need to do a little bit of work there, and prioritizing calm or safe relationships or environments are all part of ensuring that we're not then falling into the trap of, again, using food as a coping mechanism or drugs or alcohol. And I think irrespective of our backgrounds, it's this permission to take up space, you know, being able to nourish our emotional, spiritual, or even physical needs without feeling like we need validation from anybody else, that we can actually exist without having the permission to. And I think when we start acknowledging that we have value and we have worth, and we start doing the work, the true self-care work that it takes for us to acknowledge that we are deserving, it makes a huge, significant change in our capacity to build an identity that's strong. It's part of our trauma recovery, and it actually helps shift this focus from, you know, who do I need to be for others? And instead, who am I and what do I need to thrive? And I think what you've identified there, Amanda, is this significant shift that has come from a lot of work, a lot of advocacy, a lot of, you know, hard times, but it's also not impossible. You know, you've been through it all. You've been through endometriosis, you've been through cancer, you've been through a medical system that hadn't supported you. There's trauma in your upbringing, and yet there was still something in you that, you know, kept fighting and kept going. And I sometimes sit in front of my clients where they share certain stories with me, and I'm just baffled, like, how are you still like here after all of that?
Yeah.
What is in you that just keeps pushing? And sometimes they're so oblivious to that part of them that is so powerful, but they don't see it as power. They just see it as them surviving. But, you know, yeah. And I think when you've shared your story today, it's really highlighted so many facets of what so many of our community go through. It's being stuck in trauma, not knowing how to get out, self-soothing with any poison to just numb and disassociate from the seriousness of what we're having to go through, to then being slapped with something so intense that we can't escape from it other than to just do the hard work. And you have done it with such grace and such positivity as well, that you know, all I can say is how grateful I am for you to be able to share this with our community, because it highlights the depths of, you know, what what some people experience out there and rarely get the opportunity to share on a platform where so many others are able to connect with and see parts of their journey in your story.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you. And it takes a lot of work to do this, right? I remember when this first started, like a few years ago, I couldn't even say the word cancer. Couldn't even say it.
Yeah.
And now with all the pieces and just moving through things, I'm like, I can talk about this. I can notice what comes up for me and release anything I need to release and just kind of keep moving through it. So, and I've got a lot of stuff to do still, a lot of things to work through, as we all do, right? It never stops. It's just the next thing that we got to discover about ourselves.
No, absolutely. Amanda, what would you say to someone listening right now who may feel stuck in pain or patterns or in their body?
Just trusting yourself, I think that is one of the things that I've learned most, is that trusting my instincts and trusting my intuition was completely accurate, and to not second guess that, right? It's if and I don't like to play the if games or the what ifs, because I moved through things exactly how I was supposed to move through it. But that's what I try to do now, to offer to any of these gals that have even found these endometriosis groups. I'm like, I just commend them for even finding this, of like, this could be what is causing your pain. Like, it could be, and keep advocating, and just don't stop. Like, there is answers. Like, there is an answer for something. So just keep going through it, and just find it and listen. Like, you're on to something. If you feel like something's out of sorts, it is. That's all. Yeah.
And to add to that, healing is totally never linear.
Oh,
it's cyclical, layered, and so deeply personal.
It's not at all.
And
There's like loop-de-loops, and it's never a straight path. Like, oh, okay, check,
absolutely
checked off this checkbox. No, never.
Yeah.
No.
And I think when we look at, from what you've kind of mentioned there, it does begin with believing that might not be the whole of you believes this, but there is a little smidgen of belief that you are deserving and worthy of something different and something better. And if that part of you exists, even if it is really, really, really quiet, tap into that part. And if it is really difficult for you to work through what you're going through, definitely link in with your support systems, whether they are groups, whether they are professionals, whether they are trusted friends or colleagues or family. It's really important for us to be able to connect in any way, because the battle with people in your corner is always easier than battling it your own.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, with the connections, liaising, all of it. It's super important having that community.
And Amanda, how can our community get in contact with you and learn more about Amandafesting?
Amandafesting.com is up, so you can just come right to my website. All my socials are linked there. I'm super excited because I do a charcuterie of different things now. I'm supporting.
I love that.
I love it, right? I'm like, I don't like, is there a limit to Amandafesting and manifesting in general? Like, no, there's no limit. So I just do a charcuterie of things, and I'm coaching right now. All my workshops are being sponsored through the Women's Center of Halton. They're online virtually. I've had people attend them from all over the world. So if you can stay up for wherever you are and figure out the time change, you are more than welcome to attend them. I coach women on self-esteem and dating and making adult friendships and growing your business. I'm working on a wellness platform right now that is going to be my gift to the world. And none of it, the ideas would not have flown if I hadn't have gone through all of the things. And I'm really excited for other people to have access to wellness and make it accessible. I want that to be, because I feel like that can be such a barrier for people. So I'm working on my gift to the world right now. And I'm also working, I just do so many different things. You can just check it out at amandafesting.com.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you resonated with Amanda's story, remember this: healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when we hear someone else's truth and recognize a place of our own. If you're on a journey of reclaiming your body, your voice, or your joy, keep going, and of course connect. All the details to Amanda and Amandafesting will be in the description below. Amanda, you've shown us what it looks like to come home to yourself. That's one of the most powerful things we can do. And thank you so much for your time in joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And to our community, thank you for always tuning in. If this episode resonated, or if you would like any further episodes on endometriosis, cancer, or any of the topics discussed in today's episode, please share it in the comments below. If this episode resonated with you or somebody else, don't forget to share it with anyone that might need it. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment, as we always love hearing from you. Until next time, take care and keep reflecting.